Oh, that felt so much better. That was a cleansing. We needed that. Just clean everything out, clean all that junk out, and get back in the win column. And just so calm. Everything was working. Everything went well. Nothing to complain about. What a great day. So welcome in, everyone. My name is Zach Payne. If you don't know, I make Lions content here on YouTube, and the Lions win their sixth game of the season, beating the Washington Commanders 44-22 in a game that, quite honestly, was not competitive the entire time. From the jump, the Lions came out with purpose and intensity that we said they were going to, that we knew they were going to, and the Commanders just couldn't match it due to the injuries that they have, namely Jaden Daniels. So obviously it's a weakened Commanders team, but regardless, it's a good win, get it in the win column, and we have a lot of positive things to talk about as opposed to the negativity we had coming out of that Vikings game. And we're going to get into all of that, but before we do, just a reminder to hit that like button and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the content coming up on this channel. We do previews, post games, live streams during the game. It's a lot of fun. So if you want to join this community that we're building here, be sure to do those three things. It takes 5 seconds and it does help the channel grow, so I'd really appreciate it. So getting into the game, right from the jump, the theme was just calm, efficient, relaxed. Like the Lions offense came in with not even necessarily an urgency. They came in just with this aura about them that's like, yeah, we're going to go put up a whole bunch of points. We're going to go do our thing on offense. And there's nothing that's going to stop us because we need this. We need a cleansing. But the way they did that was actually a little bit different than we expected. Not in the way that the game went. I think we all expected the Lions to run the ball fairly well, and when the Lions run the ball, they pass the ball very well because, well, you could set up the play action, and Goff is one of the best play action quarterbacks in the league. When the Lions run the ball, and effectively, they in turn are one of the best offenses in the entire sport, in all of football over the last couple of years. It's when you can't run the ball that problems start to arise. In this one, the run game is great, all that. We'll talk about the player performances in a second. What I mean, though, in that this wasn't expected, is there was a change that happened after that Vikings game. The day after the Vikings game, Johnny Morton is no longer calling plays. Dan Campbell took that responsibility over, and this is a significant change that we do have to talk about. Because Johnny Morton, it's his second offensive coordinator stint in his career. He had one with the Jets that only lasted 1 year, and there's been a lot of frustration about him and the lack of diversity in the run game that I've expressed. It was way too much duo, and he struggled with some of just designing a run game in general, and his passing concepts were way too deep down the field, not enough shorter action. It was way too basic. It was way too simple of an offense for a team that has thrived on creativity over the last couple of years. And it really started to feel a little similar to the first offensive coordinator that Dan Campbell hired, Anthony Lynn, who you guys might not remember was the offensive coordinator for the first several games of that, well, I guess the entire first year that Dan Campbell was the head coach of the Lions, but he was a play caller for only the first several games because it got to a point where Dan Campbell said, enough is enough, I'm taking over. And when he took over, it wasn't perfect. He also had Ben Johnson helping out back then. But the Lions offense was much better in the second half of that 2021 season than it was in the first half, obviously. That's why they made the change. And in this game, the Lions offense comes out, has probably their best game of the season, one of the better games they've had in the last couple of years, and it's with Dan Campbell calling plays. And it seems that we got to a point where Campbell himself said, enough was enough, it's time for a change, I'm taking over. And I do wonder what this means for Johnny Morton. I'm kind of leaning towards this is going to be his only season as the Lions offensive coordinator. It seems likely that at the end of the season, there will be a natural parting of ways there. He will stay on the staff for the rest of this season and be involved in the offensive game plan, but I would expect Campbell to be taking over for the foreseeable future. Now, to be fair to Dan Campbell and to be objective, one of the things that Johnny Morton said coming out of that Vikings game is essentially, it doesn't matter what plays I call. If the offensive line doesn't block, we're not going to get anything done. And in this game, the offensive line was spectacular, and that is exactly what Dan Campbell was echoing after the game as the primary reason the Lions were able to find so much success. Dan Campbell said after the game, you could just feel the line of scrimmage move today. Honestly, I feel like you could have called anything today and they would have made it work. And that absolutely felt true. I had commented several times throughout the stream that it felt like the Lions running backs weren't being touched for 4, 5, 6 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs was fantastic in this one, and we'll talk about him as an individual. Montgomery was also very good. They just weren't being touched for the first several yards, and the offensive line deserves a ton of credit, whether it's Penei Sewell, Tate Ratledge, who were dominant on the right side in the run game. Graham Glasgow had a good game in the middle. Coyote Awushika, who is starting because Christian Mahogany's hurt, and then Taylor Decker on the left side. That five-man unit was fantastic. Dan Skipper also got involved a lot more as the sixth offensive lineman, the packages that we saw a lot from the Lions last year. He was a lot more involved today, and the Lions were outstanding in the trenches on offense, and it was just absolutely incredible to watch. Not only did the Lions run for over 200 yards in this game, they also didn't give up a single sack. The only time the Commanders really got pressure is when they blitzed. When they just rushed straight up, the Lions offensive line had no trouble dealing with them up front. And Goff had time to do whatever he wanted for the most part. And he was wheeling and dealing. He was super efficient as well. It was, yeah, like I said, like Dan Campbell said, they could do whatever they wanted. There was nothing the Commanders could do about it. Now, part of that is because they also were missing a key piece on the interior for most of this game, and we kind of can't ignore this. The Commanders' defense as a whole, super undisciplined, super out of it mentally in this one. And what I mean by that is Daron Payne, notably a good player, after the Lions score a touchdown, walks up to Amon-Ra St. Brown and punches him in the face. Unprovoked, as far as I'm aware, for no reason, just punches him in the face and gets ejected from the game, as he should have been, because why would you do that? And then Javon Kinlaw, there was a weird play where he jumped off sides, and then he spent 30 seconds in Goff's face, like clapping in his face and like and yapping at him, talking to him. And I was sitting there, I was like, what are you doing? Like, you just took a penalty, and the Lions are about to score another touchdown, and you're in Goff's face for what? You just helped them get closer to the... It was very weird. He also took an unsportsmanlike penalty after Payne got ejected, and that was weird. Quan Martin, who you might remember, who had the pick six in the divisional round, he had an unsportsmanlike penalty where Dan Skipper was laying on the ground and he like went and shoved him while he was already on the ground. It was just so weird. The Commanders' defense just seemed out of it mentally. They were getting involved in all these extracurriculars and doing a bunch of stupid things that you really just can't do. It was very odd. But as a result, Daron Payne not in the game for, well, the majority of it, and that just helped the Lions' cause as they were just pushing the Commanders' front around all day. Didn't matter, heavy box, light box, like, there was nothing they could do at all. And so now I'll talk about Jahmyr Gibbs because he is also the biggest beneficiary of the offensive line bulldozing the Commanders' front. He was fantastic in this one. Multiple explosive runs, including the 44-yarder at the end, but he was just running well all day. His acceleration was so valuable in this one. That was like Monty had a good game. He was perfectly acceptable, but Gibbs was special, and that's what we see. When Gibbs gets out in space, he is just special, and he had 172 scrimmage yards in this one, the third highest of his career. He had 3 more touchdowns in this one. That brings him up to 41 touchdowns in 41 career games. He is now 6th on the Lions all-time list. He is 1 behind his teammate Amon-Ra St. Brown, who did have a touchdown in this one. They're both going to push for the top 5 this season. Gibbs, his nose for the end zone is spectacular. And it's also impressive that he's a touchdown per game, considering he didn't have one for like 7 games his rookie year. And since then, he's just been spectacular. His first touchdown came on an angle route, which he remains undefeated on, or Texas route, whichever you prefer. He's unblockable on that route. You get him in man coverage against the linebacker, no one is stopping him. His second touchdown was my favorite because he ran off the right side. He gets stood up at the 5-yard line, and Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown just push him into the end zone. Love to see those kind of, I guess, like the brotherly shove kind of plays where you pick up a guy and you just carry him into the end zone yourself. Love the collaboration on that. And his third touchdown, just incredible burst. The Lions ran a little pin and pull toss out of shotgun, and he just gets a seam and gone. Just takes off, no looking back. And I think that's another theme I want to talk about with Dan Campbell taking over the play calling is it was a lot more creative in this one, especially the run game. Again, the Lions, when Johnny Morton was calling plays, it was not a very diverse run game. Way too much duo out of 12 personnel. Dan Campbell was calling a lot more of a variety of rushing concepts, a lot more wham, a lot more trap, pin and pull concepts. He was getting a lot more creative with the way he got Gibbs out in space because Gibbs can do everything. He can run between the tackles. He can run off tackle. He can run toss. He can run zone. He can run whatever you want from him. But the biggest thing is it doesn't matter what you run with him. You just have to get him out in space. And that was what the Lions did today, and it was spectacular. There's one play that I think it was like a 21-yard run that Gibbs had, where he's running off the left side, and Tate Ratledge comes across the line and just bulldozes the front across. And Gibbs has like 5 yards, like it's a chasm at the line of scrimmage, and he's untouched for like 13 yards. It's just spectacular. The run game, the offensive line deserves so much credit. They were amazing. And then I also got to mention Jamison Williams. Fantastic game and fantastic utilization of a special athletic talent that Williams is. He had one catch that was on like a curl route. He was involved on numerous crossers. He got in the end zone on a crosser. And my favorite was he took a short cross, like 1 yard drag route, whatever you want to call it, and the Commanders are in man, and Jamison Williams is too fast. You can't cover him in those situations. He takes it, and that's like another 30-yard gain right there. He was over 100 yards in this one, and I was so happy to see him utilized the way he should be, as more than a deep threat. Use him underneath, use him in space, use him on crossing routes, weaponize the fact that DBs are going to line up 10 yards off the line of scrimmage and hit him over the middle. It was spectacular. He had a nice little flip into the end zone. He got a touchdown. It was great to see. Goff had 3 touchdowns in this one, over 300 yards passing. Laporta had a nice day. St. Brown was a little bit quieter. He did have a drop in this one, but he got in the end zone as well. Everything was clicking for the Lions offense. There was nothing they could do to stop it, and it was awesome. 546 total yards, 226 on the ground, 320 through the air. Yeah, that will do. As far as the defense goes, this was honestly, I don't have a lot of notes on the defense. I guess like Brian Branch was utilized as a blitzer more. They had one really nice concept where Hutchinson lined up like a yard off the line of scrimmage, and he kind of, wasn't quite a stunt because he looped around multiple defenders, but he came in, got pressure. Branch cleaned it up with a sack. He also had a blitz where Branch hit a spin move on the tight end, and Roy Lopez and Branch cleaned up and got a sack as well. Aside from that, the defense was okay. I mean, there was Arthur Mollett had a nice PBU at one point. When he was in the game, Terrion Arnold was good, but he left the game with a concussion, unfortunately, which is bad. When Arnold's been healthy, he's been really good, but man, he's getting beat up a lot this season. So hopefully he's okay. Hopefully it's not too big of an absence and he's not out for too long because he's going to be needed in the near future. Rock Yassin had a nice pass breakup. It was just okay. My biggest criticism is the defensive line didn't do a good enough job against the run. They were fine, but too often the running back was getting 2 or 3 yards downfield before getting touched. The linebackers would clean up the play. I just didn't love what I saw from the defensive front. I felt they could have done a better job. That being said, it was a blowout, so I don't care as much. Like, yeah, the defensive front was just okay. I think the entire defense, that's the sentiment of the defense. The defense was fine. They probably played exactly how I expected them to play with Mariota in there. They weren't good. They weren't bad. They were normal, average. They met expectations. You allow a garbage time touchdown, cool. You allow a field goal after a long kickoff, cool. Yeah, I don't know. The defense was just fine. The special teams was mostly good, but there are just 2 things we have to mention. One is that they once again gave up a big return in this game, second straight week that the returns have started to be a problem again. The other thing, Jake Bates has had the weirdest problem the last 2 weeks. He had the kick that got blocked last week against Minnesota, which turned the tide of that game. And that was a result of maybe the line got pushed back a little bit, but the kick was too low. The trajectory was too low. Then he had a 28-yard field goal in this game where the kick, I swear, was like maybe 8 feet off the ground and it barely curved in. It was very weird looking. And then he had an extra point get blocked from the trajectory being too low. I don't know where this problem came from because it wasn't a problem. And all of a sudden in the last 2 weeks, he started kicking these balls way too low to the line and allowing defenders to get a hand on it. I just want to flag that. Something noteworthy. He was fine. He had a couple of field goals in this one, but very bizarre problem to have. Aside from that, though, like I said, super clean, efficient game. I'm very happy with it. No drama aside from whatever the Commanders' defenders were doing in terms of like big picture for the Lions, no drama. They move to 6-3. If the Packers lose tomorrow night, I believe the Lions will move to first in the NFC North. So we'll see how that game goes between the Packers and Eagles. And aside from that, yeah, that's going to be it for this one. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure to comment down below how you felt about this game, whether you're a Lions fan, Commanders fan, and you're just wallowing in a lost season for you guys. I kind of feel bad. But feel free to comment. If you're a fan of another team, comment. I don't care. I just want to hear from you guys and hear your thoughts. So be sure to do that. If you made it this far, be sure to hit like, hit subscribe, ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.